Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. For the record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
For the record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orit Connor.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record. Today being Friday, the 26th of August 2016. I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension For the Record into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or whether you're in the outdoors. Of course, For the Record is a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. It is also geared towards giving you access to lawmakers, policymakers, and those persons who are also charged with implementation of policy. I am your host, Orit Connor, and you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 9:30 a.m. Our phone lines are always open. There is always someone there waiting to take your calls. Normally, it's that beautiful voice of Miss Susan Watson. You're welcome to call us, join in the conversation on our toll-free number provided courtesy of Flow. That toll-free number is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and the 949-6990. And, of course, if you don't like to talk on the telephone, then you may email us at For the Record. That is one word, For the Record, at candw.ky. Of course, For the Record would not be possible without the support of our loyal sponsors. For the Record is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance Insurance Company Limited. Tomorrow is secured. You can call them at 949-9744 or visit them in Alista Towers. Seaboard Marine with 35 shipping routes, including from Houston, New York, Miami, and Jamaica. Visit seaboardmarine.com for shipping schedules and more. Seaboard Marine, shipping shore to shore. Fidelity Bank. For all your banking and pension needs, call or visit a Fidelity branch today. I believe that today also may be the first day of school for some students in the public school system. We know that some private schools are already opened, so you can expect there will be more traffic on the roads these mornings as a result of that, and coming next week, even more traffic when all of the schools are open as well. We ask you to be extremely careful in your driving, be courteous while at the same time observing the rules of the road, bearing in mind that not only there your fellow human being is in a car, but also there are children who are being transported to school. So you want to avoid having any type of accident whatsoever. Be courteous. Yes, everyone wants to get where they're going in time, but don't do that at the risk of injury, or serious injury, or even possibly death to someone else. So be extremely careful and courteous on the roads as you traverse the roads of the Cayman Islands. Of course, today being Friday, it is always our pleasure to have in the studio with us the leader of the opposition, the Honorable W. McKeever Bush, and I believe that we will also be joined this morning by former MLA, former minister, and former deputy premier, Mr. Ralston Anglin as well. Mr. Bush, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. It's so much to talk about, so much in the newspapers, so many headlines. So probably difficult to know where to start.
Oh, well, I'm glad to be here, O.C. Thank you very much. Ralston is just about to join in.
Okay.
Yes, one time someone asked Mr. Truman which road they were going to fix first, because the roads were so terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, just close your eyes and point. There's so many you can't miss.
Yes.
And that's the issues today. There are so many issues, so many problems. But a government has to be organized. Government has to be ready and deal with the matters, prioritize the issues, prioritize the matters. I was struck, and I don't speak a lot on education. I speak on the social side of things, and that does involve some education and some training. But I was struck to see the editorial or see the front page where the government, after 2 months of a budget, planning an 18-month budget, and coming for some heavy fire in the legislature from members of the House and then teachers and parents making huge complaints about them having to buy paper,
Resources.
the resources, and not having teachers. And now to come to see the government, they gave all sorts of excuses down there, but obviously some matters, what they're saying wasn't the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You can't tell me that you put together an 18-month budget, you take that length of while to do so, and you come, and education is supposed to be the priority. And I think the public, if ever a time is making that an issue, is now. I mean, building before was an issue, but we're talking about what's happening in education, how the children are faring off. We're talking about how they're faring off if they get a chance to get a scholarship. What happens when they come back? Are they taking entry-level jobs when really they should be having another job? So there's a tremendous amount of issues that's being discussed about education. And if you didn't prioritize, and you come now for 50 persons, 50
Positions, yeah.
positions, a month, 2 months, well, a month after your budget comes into play, a month after your budget comes into play, then you can tell me that you are looking at the priority, or are you scrambling all over the place trying to find political capital? And I think that's what happened. The things that they oppose, and particularly the things that they oppose with me, they spent more time on those things trying to do them and get them done because they never had no ideas, and therefore were at a loss because they had no plan to deal with the real education issues in the country. The one thing that I see, it seems that government, and I see this far too often, taking issues of situations and making it look like it's the first time something is being done. The PPM has a knack for doing that. They do so all the time. I looked at another paper some time ago, August 5th, and I saw this photo with the education minister in it, and she said, and this is for overseas scholarship. Really what it is an orientation. But here's what she's saying: in the past, students have struggled to meet requirements for the scholarship bonds. And when you read the quote, it's making it sound like this is the first time, and the Compass has it, and they don't, Compass often writes some very good articles, and I'm not going to say it's a bad newspaper. I just don't like certain things that happen. But of course, they don't like certain things with me either. But let's say well, right now it's the main newspaper in this country, and they print the articles. And I've said to them, look, sometimes call around and before you write an article, and get some history,
some comments and some
get some history on things, because there's a history of mostly anything in Cayman. There's a history, right? Nothing just popped up overnight. And here it is in the Compass of August 5th, where the minister stand up talking to these students for orientation, making it sound like it's the first time. And that's not. I've seen this with many issues with the government. And then someone called me about it, draw my attention to it. I saw it. But they said, Mark, isn't this something that normally is done? I said, for years, this orientation for students going abroad to further their education was being done. And so we got the papers, and we found Tuesday, 12th August 2003. Here is a picture of orientation for overseas students on page 5 of the compass, and this one was on page 2 for this year. And this says that orientation for students going abroad
13 years later.
to further their education was held
13
1st of
years
August at the Mary Miller Hall this year. And also it goes on to say who was there. Acting Governor James Ryan, Chairman of the Education Council and Education Minister Roy Bodden, Education Minister Permanent Secretary Joy Basdeo, and council member from Cayman Brac, Levon Ryan. Other council members present were Dr. Elsa Cummings and Mrs. Mary Rodriguez. The main focus of this annual event. It's been going on for years, but you pick this up, and children today pick this up and they said, oh, Tara's doing something good for education. This never happened before. It never happened before. It's been happening for years. Yet they have the audacity and they being so hypocritical with it is to try to take credit that this is the first time it's happening. No. But it happens with many, many issues that I see going on, and some of it in education. This is the first time, according to them, it's happening. No, that's not so. OC, Cayman has a great opportunity to change our direction and create a better future for our people come 2017, God willing. Our people want prosperity. They want to have widespread economic and social opportunity. People are talking about the enhancement of our families. What better way to enhance our families but through policies that enhance education, enhance healthcare, and enhance small businesses? Every society wants to be governed by people, by leaders who bring the greatest good to the widest amount of people. I've said this several times, and our people want elected representatives who work, first of all, and deliver. And when it comes to these 3 issues in particular, it means government must prioritize. Government must prioritize for health, must prioritize for education, and I think they must prioritize for small business, which everybody says is the backbone of the economy in most countries. And our national scholarship program must be seen as key investments made by the islands. We simply cannot look at the total amount spent on scholarship and say, I'm spending $15 million. We must look at the cost of tertiary education and ensure that the amount allocated per student is appropriate. Yeah, I know government has a limit, but if they prioritize, students should be receiving more than $20,000.
Okay, folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I am your host, Stuart Connor. My guest in the studio with me this morning, Honorable W. McKeever Bush, Leader of the Opposition, and we will soon be joined by former MLA, former Minister, former Deputy Premier, Mr. Ralston Anglin. Going to a commercial break now. Don't change that dial. Please stay tuned. For the Record, we'll be back shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Stuart Connor. We have now joined in the studio by former MLA, former Minister, former Deputy Premier, Mr. Ralston Anglin, and he's along with the Honourable W. McKeever Bush, Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Anglin, before we go back to Mr. Bush, good morning and welcome back to For
Pleasant good morning
Record.
to you as well, O.C. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for being here as well. Mr. Bush.
Yes,
back to you,
OC
sir.
continue. I'm saying that the National Scholarship Program, while we say we spend, and every year we increase, and there's a limit to what government can do, but we have to look carefully at the amount allocated per student and see how appropriate it is. We must look very carefully at how much a student has to take on by way of students' loans to ensure that this is not crippling them financially and crippling parents. And then we need to examine, if a parent got two children. I know one parent got 3 children going just about ready to go, two in college and another one ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to ensure that the amount does not discourage some families and students from even pursuing tertiary education. And as I said, every government has done something to improve it. Disingenuous as this one is, this government is, the national policy around healthcare, if you look at those things, must be one that adequately protects our families. I'm hearing too many cases of persons who are unemployed not having access to adequate health care during OC, what is already a very troubling and uncertain time for them and their families. And we must ensure that we have the right approach to dealing with the health insurance needs of people who are deemed to be uninsurable and who are deemed to be high-risk cases. Of course, we often say that the health of any nation is a key indication of the quality of life, and we certainly, in the world that we live in, cannot afford for the quality of life to continue to deteriorate. I mean, it is happening. It is happening for many reasons, and one of the things that I know is people say I have to leave Cayman, young people, because I don't see where my quality of life is improving, nor that any hope for my children. Now, I am saddened to hear that. I listen to people, I sit in people's living room, I talk to people all over, and young persons are feeling this way. They can't get anywhere with their small business. So the next government must defend and protect financial services, attract sensible development. We can have to continue to build and diversify tourism and bring sensible growth opportunities to the sister islands and explore sensible economic diversification opportunities. You're not going to be able to sit back and look at the economy and say financial services. That's going to take some licks. You hear what I tell you? Wait. And we don't know what they signed up there in the UK. We don't know. We don't know what they've done. All you heard that they were mending fences. I don't know, when you mend fence, you put barbed wire or something down. So it is true growing and vibrant economy that we will be able to expand our scholarship program and implement the very best healthcare policies. And the next administration must invest more in our families and children. That's what I'm saying. We must ensure that growth opportunities are embraced so that we can provide the very best for our families.
Okay, we have one phone call. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, O.C.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Fine. Good morning,
Good morning.
Honorable McKeever.
Good morning, sir.
And Ralston Anglin. Good morning.
Good morning,
to
sir.
you.
Mark, you know something? The money, the $1.8 million that they gave to Canoa Watson and never even looked at the contract before they gave to him, and nobody was held responsible for it. If they had put that towards the education of our children, imagine how many children that would educate.
Okay, that's your point, caller?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller.
Yes,
one of our listeners, I'll give you an opportunity to respond to him. Let me just read one of the listeners, then you can respond to both at the same time. It says, it's good to see that they, and talking about the government, have made the allocation for the additional 50 teachers. I'm not sure that it was 50 teachers, but 50 positions.
Positions.
Yeah,
Yes.
positions.
50 positions. But the minister has showed that she either didn't know enough about what's happening in education, or she just didn't give it a high enough priority. And it only became important when pressure was applied by parents and other politicians.
They're making a big point about Lee Ralston to deal with it, but it is true. But you know what I want to say? The government, she really, Tara, if they did that to her, if she's made a point and they didn't listen to her, she holds the strings to that government. Either you can give me money for what these children need, or you don't have me as your member. She's an independent member, she claims. Where's her independence? And all them that talking about being independent and getting into government, they better understand what it means. They better understand what it means. They need to stand up when time comes to stand up.
Mr. Anglin, to the callers, listeners' comment in relation to the pressure put on and.
Well, the listener we couldn't have described it any better than what the listener, the author of that email did. Yeah. This is the biggest travesty that I can recall seeing in my recent memory in government. How can you pass a budget that took effect July the 1st?
A month ago.
Barely a month, just over a month ago, and come to the country just a month and a bit better later and say that you need not 5, not 10, not 15, not 20, but 50 positions in the Ministry of Education. It shows an absolute failure. I mean, this is the biggest failure that I can remember seeing ever in a long, long time on the part of any minister, in particular the Minister of Education. How can you not ensure that your ministry has the resources to deliver on the most important national priority that we have? Our education system. We have to stop this talk about education being a priority. I can remember in our 4 years that every time the budget came around, as tough as we had it, whenever the allocation for positions came up, Mr. Bush, who was premier at the time, made it clear that if we had room in the budget for, let's say, 20 new positions, that 10 was coming to education. And he made that clear to all the other ministers that education had to get the lion's share because that was the priority of the government. So to now have a situation where this government has bragged about what is now 5 consecutive budgets with a surplus, and to now not have it prioritized is a real tragedy.
Folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Stuart Connor. My guest with me this morning, Honorable W. McKeever Bush, Leader of the Opposition and former Minister, Member, Deputy Premier, Mr. Ralston Anglin. Please stay tuned. For the Record, we'll be back immediately after the news. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I am your host, Stuart Connor. My guest in the studio with me this morning, the Honorable W. McKeever Bush, Leader of the Opposition, as well as Mr. Ralston Anglin, former member of our Legislative Assembly, former Minister, former Deputy Premier as well. Before we get back into the conversation, just want to present another point of view. I know you gentlemen have been talking about the state of the economy as well. This was one listener from a previous show, actually, but I didn't get an opportunity to read it then. It says 94 out of 100 people in the Cayman Islands who want a job are working. This is an amazing statistic. The island is rocking and rolling. Anybody who wants a job can get one. You can take a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. You can take a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink. I have a guy working with me who committed armed robbery and a few years ago went to jail, did his time, and came out. I gave him a job. He promised to do good, and he is doing all right. If he could get a job, anybody can or should.
Well, I don't know who's saying these things, and I don't know which Cayman they're living in. That is 94 out of 100 in Cayman that has a job. There are several ways things that we have to look at. Someone was reminding me last night.
I think that's probably based on the 6% employment.
Unemployment.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
What that's 6%. But what you need to look at is where Caymanians are being employed, whether they are taking entry-level jobs, and therefore more Caymanians could be working into entry-level jobs, getting into a job if the people who are well qualified were not being employed in entry-level jobs. Far too many Caymanian professionals are being employed in entry-level positions. They need to look at that. But I can tell you for what I'm finding out there as a representative, if that's only 6%, then it must be 6% of 100,000 and not 6% of 50. It is a lot of people that are unemployed. For, like I said, for various reasons. And about it rocking and rolling, no two ways about there are things that there's some work going on. Thank God that people put now their plans into could put their plans into action, because the world economy has seemed to have got better, but they need to look at it closely to think that it is not going back into a rut as some of the economists are saying.
Now, gentlemen, as Mr. Bush as a former premier and Mr. Angler as a former deputy premier, I would imagine it is never a good position for a government to be in, to be reactionary rather than being proactive. And when you talk about the education situation, when you talk about the funding, the additional funding for 50 positions, it is no doubt that the government was being reactive as opposed to being proactive. Based on what you said, if it had been planned, it would have been in the budget itself.
Exactly. Now, when no plan. Obviously, this government had no plan when they criticized, degraded, marched, protested, had mock assembly meetings on the steps of the Legislative Assembly, on this radio show every day, complaining about the projects on other radio shows, and complaining about what we were putting in place. We weren't reactionary. We were making long-term plans. That's what the Kipton is. That's what that is, whether we like it or not. That's what they are. They're doing long-term. And so we were busy about getting industries in here that are sustainable. When I was talking about getting, doing a specific or a special kind of transshipment, this government had no plans. So everything they done, you ought to see that they had no plans, as I said, when they came back and done everything, including just going to Honduras, from which they say that I was a disgrace for me to go to talk about products.
Now, Mr. Anglin, our approach to education.
Had no plan.
Our approach to education, a lot of resources, a lot of effort put into the infrastructural side of things to improve those. But at the same time, you had to, I would say, take a two-pronged approach, not only deal with the infrastructural side of things, but also deal with the policy side and the pragmatic side of education in terms of educating, our students. Having to do both of those at the same time, how challenging was that?
Well, if we recall, I had an enviable position to go back to my caucus to tell them that we had an investment that, quite frankly, wasn't fit for purpose. It wasn't an investment that was going to fit into our cultural way of learning. We have to understand that you can't just go to Korea, for example, South Korea, and say, oh, here's how a school is built in South Korea, and then come to Cayman and say, we're going to build a school just like that. The society is different. How parents raise children are different. How children behave are different. And so everything you do, you have to ensure that you're pushing the envelope in the sense that you want to improve, but it has to be around how we live and move as Caymanians. And so having that $38 million that was in the ground, as a government, we felt like at the time, and I think if we had to do it all over again, and we would have to make the same decision. $38 million was in the ground, and we just couldn't walk away from that. And on top of that, we had a contractor in place at the time with a legal contract. Mm-hmm. Now, that contractor walked off the job some 6 months, because we took office in May, and they walked off in November. So by November, we were even further along in terms of how much monies we had expended on those two schools. But to your point, the most important investment is in teachers, support assistants, and the specialists who assist in education. So our speech and language therapists, for example, we don't understand a lot of times how important those specialists are. Cayman is no different than anywhere else in the world. Finland, accepted as the highest performing one of the highest performing education countries in the world. When I visited there, they had 32% of children that they deemed to either have a special or an additional education need. What separates them? How they assist those children. Ultimately, they do a better job than 90% of countries, 95%, because they were number 5 at the time, of countries in the world at making sure that children who have any additional need, that those needs are met. If we bring that back to home, as Mr. Bush said earlier, how can you be in the Legislative Assembly leading up to a budget that's going to take effect July the 1st, go through the scrutiny and examination in Finance Committee, and not be able to know that your ministry needs 50 additional people? That, as the emailer and Mr. Bush said earlier, that shows complete mismanagement. That isn't even dropping the ball. The ball wasn't even on the field, Mr. Connor. Forget about dropping the ball. The ball wasn't even on the field in that situation. So they were playing a football game without a ball.
One caller. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Bush, and morning, Mr. Anglin.
Morning.
You see, I always call this government is the disaster government. Past 4 years, they damaged the life of the people of this country. They victimize people. They did victimize myself, victimize others because of our political support to the United Democratic Party. I feel sad for people like, elect such people. Elect such people. Such evil-thinking people sitting in this government. They are the worst ever I see in the world.
Mm-hmm. Caller, rather than hurling invectives, can you get to the point that you want to make, please?
Yes. The point I want to really make is that want to say that there is a pilot for this helicopter plane, second pilot.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a Caymanian pilot, and this government claiming that they want to employ Caymanian and they want to solve the unemployment problem. I know every minister want to solve the unemployment problem, but unfortunately they leave and they never solve the unemployment. There's people have children in this country, they don't or can't feed their children. And the unemployment problem is example for it, that this government don't want to solve, is the issue of appointing a second pilot, and there is a Caymanian pilot. And that is the disaster. This government should resign today before tomorrow, because they are a disaster for this country, and they are the worst in the world. I never see a government in the world worse than this.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much. Gentlemen?
Well, I think it's fair to say that if you were in education and a senior manager in education today, that perhaps in your heart of hearts, that's how you'd feel. But that caller went, I guess, was saying what was on his mind.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But in regards to the whole situation, the show, you all opened the show to say that if you just had to close your eyes and throw and you could hit an issue, all we do need to do is look at the recent headlines in the various publications and it's issue after issue.
Yeah.
And certainly what the caller just spoke about is a very serious issue. that the government knows that they do have a young man who desires to be a pilot, a helicopter pilot. I know that yes, there are issues around how you get a person experience and how you get them enough hours to be able to be qualified. But I can say that if you are the government and you have the authority and the might of the government, no matter how small we are, you can work with other governments, whether they be local or national governments. You can work with other companies within other countries to be able to bridge that gap, get the number of hours that's required so that the young man can come and take up the profession that he has gone and put his effort into. If government isn't going to do that, then what message are we sending to young people?
Yeah. Was there a commitment to that? My understanding is that the former chief officer, who's now our London representative, had given some assurances in terms of his father, the young man's father, exposure to gain the number of hours that were required to have him attached possibly to some other jurisdiction, but I'm not sure where that is at this point in time. And maybe if someone out there who's listening knows what the situation is, we would certainly be more than happy to hear, from them as to what the position obtains now in relation to the young man who is a helicopter pilot, who wants to work with the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, but who is not able to do so for various reasons. Some people think that it is, again, another case of institutionalized racism, and when I say racism, I use that loosely in terms of another Caymanian not being able to get a job. Not to do with the color of the skin, but because of the person's origin.
Maybe victimization is more like it rather than racism.
Yes.
Yeah, and the thing is, in these cases, and I heard the same story, and what it seemed to me to be was, basically making promises after promises versus really stepping up and saying, here's what we're going to do and here's how we're going to go about doing it. But the bottom line on this point, and let's get back to the other email that was penned that you read, Mr. Connor, which was around employment. And I say to that person who wrote the email, they ended off with a very powerful point, in that there was an ex-con, a person who had gone to prison for a very serious offense, according to them, that they employed. All I can tell them is that they need to continue to do that, because there are many, many others out there who are not being given that opportunity. Yeah. And so second chances and rehabilitation of offenders has been yet another failure of this administration. We've talked about this issue. We've done more research. We've done more committees. We have the information of what we need to do. But we have to assist. If you're going to have a country where once you go to Northward Prison, that means you can't get a job, that means that we might as well lock those people up for life. Because what we're saying to them is that they can't support themselves or their families. If they can't support themselves or their families legally, what are they going to do? That is a simple question. What are they going to do? They're going to re-offend. And one of the reasons we submit that we have such a high rate of reoffending in Cayman is the fact that not that people come out of Northwood and don't want to change, but they come out and they can't get a job. It's built into the system that they're not getting a job.
Yeah. Folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I am your host, Dorrit Connor. My guest with me this morning, Honorable W. McKeever Bush, Leader of the Opposition, and Mr. Ralston Anglin. Please stay tuned. Going to a commercial break. Don't change that dial. Lots of exciting things to talk about. So please stay tuned. Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. Want to remind you, phone lines are open. Toll-free number provided courtesy of Flow, 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 or 949-6990. Or you can also email us at fortherecord, one word, fortherecord @candw.ky. Handing back over to you, Mr. Bush. Mr. Anglin, you want to go
Well,
ahead in the meantime?
Ultimately, we were on the whole issue around employment and how we ensure that government sets the standard. And the point that a caller had made surrounded this whole issue of the helicopter pilot, that this second pilot that's being brought in, which to the caller, and I think to all of us who are looking on, really flies in the face of what we know exists. That is, we have at least one Caymanian who is known to government as desirous of being a helicopter pilot, and really trying to figure out why it would be that the second pilot is brought in, and where would this young man stand. It is something that we will have to try and get more information on, because we can't speculate.
Right.
But what it comes down to is people are continually observing that politicians get up and say that they want to do something about unemployment. The government says they want to do something about unemployment. Yet, when people look at the government itself, the civil service itself, and they see cases like this that are very public cases, and they see a situation where a non-Caymanian is being brought in for that post, they naturally get angry. They naturally, I mean, what else can you expect of the public but to be upset in a situation like that? So we need to get to the point that we talked about last week on the show, Mr. Connor, which is there must be an equal playing field in the workplace. And the workplace goes from government straight to the private sector. So the private sector must comply with a rollover policy, yet government doesn't. The government tells the private sector, oh, you must Caymanianize and you must do this, and this in regards to before you can get a work permit, and all that is good and fine. People want that to be even stricter. But at the same time, they then look on, business owners and the public alike look on, and they see government not practicing what they're preaching. And if government isn't going to lead by example on this front, then I'm much afraid you're not going to get the results that you want. I don't care how much politicians make an issue of this and how eloquently they speak of it. We must have in place the programs that support it. Mr. Bush talked about another point that's equally important. Young people coming back on scholarship. So government is going to spend $15 million a year on tertiary education, yet all they do is window dress it with a system and a little program, which is highly politicized in my opinion, and it need not be. That is some internships. So yes, you give a couple of hundred young kids a job for summer, but you don't ensure that you're setting them up with employers and employment for when they get out of school. That makes no sense.
That was the other point that I saw. It was the first time it was being done. I mean, it's so highly politicized. We did that. I don't know, once that I took any picture with any students or anybody. We just made sure that the positions were there, and we told them, look, you have to have these positions available in the various departments to take on people, whether it was the port, whether it was the water authority, or whether in central government itself. We made it happen. And you can say, well, that's your fault because you're not being, you didn't publicize it and didn't give it PR. Not everything, these things are done, and the people that it's being done for know that it's being done. So you got to take a picture every time of every minister and the premier every time. They're politicizing too many things.
What are your views in relation to the fact that when you're recruiting for a particular position, that you want to find the best and the brightest? Yes, that ultimately that is what most businesses that's what they're looking for. But is it always necessary to do that? And in our context here in the Cayman Islands, because we see government continuing to do it as well those senior civil servants who are responsible for making decisions when it comes to hiring seem to feel as if they have to justify what they're doing by saying, we got the best person for the job. And that best person, quote unquote, best person, may not be a Caymanian. We hear people talk about the fact that we're going to probably have to soon, and we're probably doing it in a roundabout way, implement affirmative action programs for our own Caymanians here when it comes to employment. Is it always necessary to get the best and the brightest, or to give the Caymanian an opportunity to become the best and the brightest by putting them in those positions and supporting them along the way, giving them the necessary support along the way? I know, for instance, and I hate to use myself as an example, but I'll use myself as an example. When I became chief immigration officer, there were many people who were skeptical about the fact that I was becoming chief immigration officer. It was an area, uncharted waters where you'd never had a true-born Caymanian in that position before. And there were also people in the civil service who simply didn't want to see a Caymanian, especially a Caymanian of color, in that position.
You calling it like it is today, Mr. Connor.
I always do. Always do. We have two callers. Let's go to the phone lines. First caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Morning.
Morning. How are you?
Not bad. Morning to everyone.
Morning.
Yeah, I had to get a little bit of white paint throw away. That persistent thing still going on in Cayman. Anyway, like I said with the civil service now, you not only have to look at it in one way. You have our own Caymanians that are in high positions that once they have the power and the big education and so forth, they tend to ride the smaller man. So, they try to get most of the expatriates within the civil service too, because with those numbers like that, they really don't say anything no matter what takes place. But if they have more Caymanians and Caymanians see things that are not going on right, they're going to stand up. So the more of Caymanians that stand up, the less chance of them having a position. So a lot of times that's the reason why they don't want to put Caymanians in the civil service or hire them when it's time for them to recruit. When it comes down to the education now, they have some teachers that they hired for special education. I'm wondering if they have any for the SciTech high school, because I think that those children over there that go in there need special education, a lot of them. I don't know if they're putting any over there. And they should be starting from preschool level. I don't know if government has gotten or used any of those teachers to go into the preschools, or it should be mandatory that the preschools have special education teachers, because you need to start off from the preschool level, that when they go into the primary school that they will be up to standard, or it might be perfectly, but they will be more advanced, that they can cope with the work at the primary school level. So I don't know, because they're making announcements, but they're not saying where they have these teachers, what schools, how much in which school, or so forth. They're just announcing it. It's similar to when the school ready to open. It's like you got to be trying to find out when the school start, because you hear this and hear that. And I don't know why they can't tell the children before they come on vacation or go on school break. So say, well, okay, make them know like a month in advance when the day that they're leaving school. Say, well, okay, you got to come back to school at such date, to have the children excited to know that they have to come back to school at that date that parents would know. So, I mean, this has been going on for years now, but I know from in the 80s and the 90s, I mean, we knew when school started back before, at least a month in advance. We didn't have to be asked, trying to find out or listen to the radio. We knew already when to come home and tell our parents that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, caller. I'm going to give you gentlemen an opportunity to respond after. We're going to take a commercial break. We have one more caller online. But once we take this commercial break, then we'll be able to talk for about a good 20, 25 minutes without any commercial breaks. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly, caller. Hang in there. We'll be back to you as quickly as possible. Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. We're going straight to the phone lines as promised. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, OC, and good morning, Mr. Bush, Mr. Anglin.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Robert Warden here. You got to give me a little leeway this morning for a few minutes.
Okay.
Not a few minutes, but to explain something to you.
Sure.
First, we need to understand that there's a massive corruption in this island. Unless you're willing to pay money to people, you're not going to get at the Cayman, you're not going to get ahead. Even a little helicopter pilot, you don't know who to give him a little money to pay, he never get the job. You know, and this is from experience that I've had. Now, the very last job I did with government was about 5-6 years ago, the DTF Marina. On that job, OC, Mr. Bush and Mr. Anglin, the site supervisor, and during one of our site meetings, said to me, oh, well, we're not getting nothing out of this. And I didn't understand what he said, and in a few seconds it clicked. Wait, I said, what do you mean you're not getting out of this? Oh, then indicated that, you know, we need to give a little money out of it. I told him, I said, listen, J. Robert Borden, do not give out any money. It's only what you get out of this job is a job well done, on schedule, and according to the budget. The only time increase we'll have is if you all ask us to do something else. Mm-hmm. Since that time, gentlemen, I have never got another job from government because I would not pay somebody, whoever it was, that he was representing.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
and I have a bid on about 9 or 10 jobs. If my bid was the lowest bid, I never got it. If I was the middle bid, and I never got it if I was the highest bid, and the highest bid was the right price, because I've seen jobs that they had to give up the lowest bid and had to come back to give them the price that I quote to finish the job. So there is corruption, and you know this boy, it demoralizes me. You know, I looked at other areas, gentlemen. They brought up the top grinding in Cayman. I saw it and I brought it down and said, well, okay, I'll work with government to do the grinding the trees and whatnot. I started fixing it up, and I realized that machine was too big. It was too big to handle here. You should be able to take that on smaller machine around to properties that they clear the land and grind that material, leave it right on the land so it can turn into soil. Don't dump it in the dump. I wrote a letter proposal to the Environment Department there, outlining cost per square yard, whatever cubic yard it was, to do in Cayman. They had a whole bunch of garbage. You know that I never got a response for them. From that, not even the manners to respond. Well, we're sorry, we can't do it. I was willing to work with government, buy another machine. So I'm getting demoralized. I saw the machine is sitting. Even though I peeled it up and all going in, I can't get nothing. I just sat down and left the machine there. I thought of another idea about the tires. Now remember, a couple of years ago they put in for a bid to people to do. They never gave the bid. So I looked. I said, well, okay, I can use this. And I thought of an idea about turning the tires into oil, and also getting the carbon black, from which is an expensive product they could ship to the state. They use it for different things. I made a proposal to the government because nobody was interested in doing it. I got a letter back from the minister. Oh, they'll do go to Central Tenders Committee, must apply. When I checked to get the papers, there was 9 different people getting. I said, well, you know something, J. Robert, now get this, so I'm not going to even bid on it. You know, the reason, because the Central Tender Committee, they're all tied in this whole thing, whoever the members are. And I don't care who you are, Mr. Central Tender Committee. You're all a bunch of criminals and crooked, and you're all looking for corruption. And if you don't like it, come and take a piece out of J. Robert Borden. You know, I'm 70 years old, healthy and strong, and none of it can take care of me, you understand? So you all need money, and you're all corruption. And it's just got to stop. We need good politicians that look at the thing, and everybody get an equal opportunity. You know, we don't get it in these Cayman Islands unless, as the lady said, you paint yourself a little white. Maybe I'm a little bit too brown, you know, or maybe I have a Borden name, you know, another English name or some other nationality name, you know. And this is wrong in our little island. I invested in this island from day one. I was the first in the air conditioning. I see them coming doing everything, undermining everything, doing what I came in to succeed in the island, you know. And this should stop. You know, good thing they put, never elected me as a politician when I run for politics, because we've had a great change in this island. You know, we've identified those corrupt people that's in their ward just to their own self. Gentlemen, I trust you all to do something, Mr. Bush. I know you always try your best to do something and accuse you of all kind of things, but you're still not there trying to fight. And all I can do is encourage you to continue doing. But that's my story on this Cayman Islands thing here. So subsequently, they demoralized myself, they demoralized my son, which was helping me in the construction industry. I don't feel like doing a bit on a job anymore out there. I don't bid with government more anyhow, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
The only thing I can do now is try to do a little project myself to try to get work for ourselves. That's the only how we can happen, And this is a shame to happen in the Cayman Islands that I worked hard in this country for many years, and then you got to be treated this way, that nobody respect you, nobody only can look at it as the foreign person giving them everything. Caymanian, you're a bunch of skizzles. That's all you are.
Thank you very much, caller.
It is, that man, I think most people know, he's a man of integrity. As long as I know him,
Yes.
and we haven't agreed, and I'm younger than him on many issues, but what we know him is that he is a man of integrity. He's lived a good life, a good family man. And when you hear people get to the extent that they feel so disenfranchised, that he has to come publicly and say that he was approached by someone
For a kickback.
for a kickback. That's a serious situation in this country. We don't know how prevalent it is. You hear things and people make all kind of accusations, but when you hear somebody come to this extent, say who they are, blatant, openly, and not hiding anything, they certainly feel disenfranchised. And as I said earlier, I'm hearing it more and more of local people becoming so frustrated, feeling disenfranchised. When that person talking about Cayman is rocking and rolling, they better check how they rock and how they roll, and who's benefiting out of the rock and roll. And many people say this over many years, and more it becomes evident. I've had time to sit back as a legislator and look at some of the things that people have been saying over the years, and say where we need to fix things, and where we need to put emphasis and priority on matters in this country. As I said, Caymanians feel that they have been left behind. That's what I'm finding when I go and sit down in people's living room. And yes, they will like me as a representative. They might not like somebody else that ran with me. They might like somebody else and don't particularly like me for whatever reason. But when people talk to you, you hear what people are saying.
Mr. Anglin, I know you want to comment on the young lady that called in and talked about education and the special needs and everything as well.
Well, the thing that we all have to recognize in all of this is that schools start in September, right? A school is a very, very different type of organization. A school isn't one that you can simply advertise in August and say, I'm going to get somebody in November. School starts in September, and there's a school year. And there's the normal recruiting cycle if you're going to get the best and brightest. And if there's one area that we should be trying to ensure that we get the very best and brightest is anyone that we're going to put in our education system.
But now, what is Tara going to do now? This is your school year has started, right? 1 month into the budget, you're getting 50 people. How long it take to get 50 people? And then to transport them here, pick up them from wherever they are,
right?
And bring them here,
right?
And probably family as well. That's what happens, and all that has to be done,
right?
So how long this going to take?
And not only that, at this stage, we have to be realistic, and I'm not going to say I have to be very careful because I don't want to label anyone that may get one of these jobs. But the fact of the matter is that
we're not. We're not the only country that is recruiting, eh?
Right. And
yes.
We're not the only country recruiting, but the fact is, with the school year starting in September, anyone that's quote unquote left on the market at this stage is really the person that couldn't get a job, right? Let's just face it.
That's what I'm saying. Other countries, not just us,
yes.
Right?
So not just us.
So everybody's done their recruiting, and they've hired who they thought were the best of what was available. Here we are in August. We have a minister who has obviously failed in her duty as a minister because the budget did not include what she needed for the Ministry of Education. And now, less than 60 days after the budget is passed, you now hear this big grandiose announcement. I said it, there's a tick box, snapshot government. That's what we got.
Yep.
Tick a box, snap a picture. That's the MO. But so you come in August and going to tell the country that 50 new positions have been approved for education, and now where are these people going to come from? How are we going to recruit? How are we going to ensure that we're getting the very best, which is what our children in our public school system deserve?
Mm-hmm. 2 callers. Let's go to the phone lines. First caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Bush.
Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Roston.
Good morning.
I want to say, back up Mr. Barton there, just calling. About the education, I think that'll take care of itself.
No, it won't. No, it won't, caller. Just, I know you have your point, but education not gonna fix itself. Come on. I know you may just have just said that to get over the point, because I think I know who you are, and I want you to get to your point. But education not gonna fix itself. We've been saying that for too long, unfortunately. But anyway.
Well, I'm no educator, so
Yeah.
I apologize for making that statement. But you know me with my heart done.
I know.
Construction. What are you gonna do, you and Mr. Ralston, when you get in, about the problem that Mr. Barton just called in and said? Because I tell you what, there's a lot of frustrated Caymanian builders out here, and it's not just started today. I pick up public government documents to bid on, and I tell you what, you don't have to be a builder anymore. You got to be a financial a financer to get a construction job today, because that's what qualifies. You know, it's not a matter of you being qualified or whatever anymore to be a builder. It all has to do with all those requirements and criteria you have to meet. To me, you know, I don't know who all introduced that, but that was introduced to keep people like me and Mr. Barton out of the business. And about kickbacks, that's the norm of the day in Cayman. The whole construction industry have turned to that route where it's all about kickbacks. And of course, they don't trust the Caymanians to bring that proposal to them. So they keep us out of the industry. But I want to know how this can be done. How can it be corrected? What can be done out there? And I'll wait on your answer, sir.
Well, there are many ways to deal with good governance, and presumably you heard so much about good governance and what the government has done to enforce good governance. Well, let's see if the mechanisms that they have work. But you know, I know who I'm talking to. You know who you're talking to, and we have talked before, and we will sit down with people like yourself and get your assistance on some of these issues.
But
that is exactly what I want you to hear. I hear you say, sir. You have to bring us on board. We have to be around the table, because whenever the food is being served and we're not sitting at the table, Mr. Bush, we're going to be angry. We're going to be very angry people. And that is what has happened in this country. Okay? We are not at the table. When these developers come in, we should be at that table. We are the players in this country when it comes to the development and construction. But we're being left out. Some of us don't even know a job is coming on the island until we see the ground breaking.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a big problem. We are being left out of the equation of our development. And we can brag about, we're building a great economy. But for whom? How can you build a great economy when the main players are not at the table?
You see, one of the things that I know, like 2000, and you heard it before for many years, people say, look, we don't want the same old. We don't want the same people hitting up the boards. We don't want the same one getting the jobs. So we want to put people in place and get people to make sure that the thought process in this country about getting business, and we talk about business, is changed. And we did that. That's what people said. Don't want the same old people on the boards all the time. And all we did was get kicked in the face and say, well, you only patronizing. you only patronizing Caymanians, and some people say that, well, who we have to patronize? We have to be a fair country. But the first act of business is to ensure that your people are living properly. If they have a business, that they're getting business. If they need an education, that they're getting assistance with it. Yeah, we have to patronize, if that's what you want to put it. We have to take care of our people. I say take care. I don't call it patronizing. Take care of our people. And you got to find ways and means to do that. And what happened? There is such a lobby in government or against government at times, and the media will stir up things and say all sorts of things on you. That's one way of them doing things to kick you in the face.
Well, it sounds to me like you need a group from the private sector to face those media, and I'm ready to face any one of them, because this country belongs to Caymanians. We have invited people here, gave them Cayman status. They are now Caymanians, and they are hurting. They're going through the same problem that the native Caymanians or the indigenous Caymanians are going through. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about, they ask you, why should you patronize Caymanians? Who else should we patronize?
Who else?
Who else?
That's the point I'm making.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? You get me on a board and let them come and lobby you, but I won't be at the table. Put people like me and Mr. Borden at the table. I asked many times to let me have meetings with these same lobbyists that trying to push us out of business, but nobody wants to carry me to that table. And that is where we failed. We're failing our people. Our people have to be involved from the inception of speaking of my area of the development in this country, because a lot of it is coming in here, a lot of it. And now, what I've seen, they are circumventing the system so they can come in here and actually develop on their own by giving them this LCCL license. Let me ask you something, Mr. Bush. What was this LCCL license created for? What was that created for?
The local companies control license basically was created for unusual, unique companies to come and operate in the Cayman Islands to offer services that could not be offered
by
locally.
Yeah.
And those persons coming into the islands to offer those services still needed to have Caymanian participation in that. They had to have that Caymanian participation, or at least you had to advertise for it. If you didn't get the Caymanian participation, then you were given a local companies control license. But it was not the type of local companies control license that we see these days, where it is for all and sundry. It was, like I said, for specialized areas, for areas that probably were not offered in areas that were not offered by Caymanians in terms of particular services. Now it is much more difficult, because I'm thinking, caller, in terms of what can government do to assist Caymanian companies, especially when government is putting work out to tender. But if you say it has to be a Caymanian company these days, you don't know what you're getting when it says a Caymanian company. So do you say to Caymanian companies with full Caymanian ownership by persons who are born Caymanians or whatever? But the local companies control license in those days, and what we have now is not fit for purpose. What we have now is not fit for purpose.
That law you're talking about.
Yeah.
That law certainly has to be looked at, has to be reviewed, and a discussion with it. What we do have to be mindful of is that we do have to, while we got to work to bring our people on board, to make sure our people are surviving, to make sure that quality of life is not going down in a pit of morass. We still have to have outside investment.
We don't have a problem with that,
Yeah.
Mr. Bush.
There's
never been a problem with that.
Oh, it has been a problem for some people, my friend. You know, I know what I'm talking about. There has been some people will just get up and say, we don't need this, we don't need that. That can't work. We don't manufacture anything in this country. Money comes from outside. What we have to do is to find ways and means of making sure that our people are getting out of it. That's what has kept this country going, and that's what we need to do, and that is not being done. And yes, I have been part of government that has various governments that has failed in it. Some do it, some work hard at trying to help our people more than others, but that's a fact. That's a fact. We have to depend on the business coming in. What we have to do is to get that fine line, to be able to deal with that fine line of where our people are benefiting. Because anybody brings $1 million into the country, they want to watch closely where they're going. Just like in a bank, you're not going to. Nobody's going to bring $3 million or $1 million or $100 and give it to somebody that can't manage it in a bank. Yeah. Right.
No,
we have to have.
We saw a great example of that. Give me a stick point there. With the two Butler brothers came in here in the late 70s, and they brought in millions of dollars. And do you know they got to build their condominium and their home? Guess who?
Caymanians.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Now, today, and he didn't look if he had an LCCL license, it was to operate as a developer. But the building of those buildings, and he built almost probably more than half a 7 Mile Beach.
Yep.
By Cayman contractors.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But today, because of the law and the sneaky way that the DCI is advertising their business or advertising to developers, there's nothing wrong with the investors and developers. But what we say, if you come in here, we want to be part of it. And that was the law.
Got to. And it's not by a politician, and anybody, when a politician says so, the first thing is that Cayman says, he won't get something from the developers, you see? Because I've been around it. Like I said, everything has a history. I know how they accuse us, right? No, that's not it. All I'm saying, and I've ever said, I want you to come. Understand, I want you to come, and I'll go Singapore, I'll go New York, I'll go London, go Los Angeles, and I've done it. I'll go to the United Arab Emirates and promote Cayman. If you come in Cayman, you got to work through a local person. You have to. Now, maybe what's happening in this country is that some of that is happening, and then they go into certain Cayman. Because you see some business one time, well, you wonder how that is happening.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You wonder, well, how is that person building? But when you go and check, it is a Caymanian that they have, and they call it fronting.
Fronting, yeah.
They call it fronting. But as far as I'm concerned, Caymanian not create no money. We not print no money in this country. We not got no industry that is bringing huge pile of money in here. Mm-hmm. No, we have to depend on people. And as I said, people are going to put up $1 million and think that they can just stand up and you go spend $1 million and I'm not going to watch it if I have my $1 million. And I know I don't want to be part of it. Oh, yes.
Yep. Caller, we're going to ask you to leave us there. We're going to go to a commercial break now. We have one more caller, I believe, on hold. We're going to ask that caller to hold on. Going to a commercial break. When we come back, the conversation will continue. Please stay tuned. Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. We have about 15 minutes left. We have two callers on hold. We're going to want to accommodate those callers. We're going to ask you, we're going to try to give you as much time as possible, but want to ask you to be as brief as possible as well. First caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. O.C. Good morning to Mr. Anglin and Mr. Bush.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Interesting discussion this morning. Just wanted to offer up a couple of comments and then two questions.
Sure.
I think. First of all, both of the gentlemen in the studio are seasoned veteran politicians who understand the game. I think I understand it. I think Mr. O.C. definitely understands the game. But I was going to say, we can't be shocked that the government have now found the resources for 50 additional positions. In fact, I would go on record to say congratulations and well done, because this is an example of people power. If the parents and the PTAs and the concerned citizens didn't speak up, lend their voices to this, would those funds be found? Probably not, but hey, thankfully we're in an election year and everybody wants to retain their job, so they end up doing some pretty incredible things. Nonetheless, if the children benefit from these additional positions and resources, then that's all I'm really interested in, the betterment of Cayman and the improvement of our public education system. So we shouldn't be surprised by that point. Second thing, we spoke about, the boards and who gets appointed and who doesn't get appointed. Again, we're running into an election year. People lend their resources, their time, their effort, their money to the war chest for the big expensive campaigns that the groups put on. So we can't be surprised when you see some of the same people who have been dogged with some allegations of impropriety being appointed to some very important positions. But this is a political year, an election year, and this is how the game gets played. What I find most interesting, though, is, gentlemen, you can't be surprised or vexed when the current administration appoint people that are loyal to them, because truth be told, you guys did the same thing. And all I'm saying, I say that in the spirit of objectivity, because those are the rules of engagement in politics. Nobody's going to take somebody who offers too much objectivity or walks the middle of the road and doesn't drink enough Kool-Aid and actually do what we're supposed to do, which is implement and enforce the rules and regulations of the Cayman Islands, because big business and those that donate to your campaign drive the agenda of the parties. That's a fact wherever you go in this world. So let's not pretend that isn't the case. What I will say is I'm encouraged that you guys are speaking as coherently and thoroughly as you are on the issue, so that if you become the government, we'll see something different out of you. Now, I know how that sounds. I'm dogged with the accusations of, well, I'm McKeever's boy, and I'm a this, and I'm...
Oh, you hush.
That's what they do,
You're not supporting me, hush.
Okay, you did say you had a question. What's the question?
Yeah, I know you're gonna rush me off, Mr. Osei. I was just making the point of this. When we have allegations of corruption that are voiced by private citizens and so on and so forth, are we to believe that McKeever Bush is the only person that is deserving of an investigation? You mean to tell me that any sort of corrupt practices stopped the day that they charged him with his alleged offenses that he was acquitted on? Where are the other investigations? Are we to believe that this administration is beyond reproach and paragons of virtue, and nobody in that administration is currently using their office to benefit themselves and their pecuniary interests? All I'm calling for is one standard of accountability, one standard of transparency, and whatever good governance means, it has to apply to everybody across the board. If all we've ever had is one person at the highest levels be investigated and pursued and embarrassed and all the rest of it, surely there must be other persons who are doing the exact same thing.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much.
It's not going to happen. No, first point is about parents, and I know Ralston will pick it up, but because of education. No. Yes, I'm happy, but we have to point out the realities. I mean, I'm hoping that Mr. Johan is speaking with tongue in cheek when he's saying that, because I am happy when something gets done. I am talking about if they met well, if they were on the job, if they being qualified people and telling the country, look, McKeever Bush not going to education, he didn't go to university, we lawyers, and this is the best government you ever got. Now, if parents had to speak out to get it, yeah, there's something wrong with that. Yes, there's something wrong with it. Yeah, it's good the parents speak out, but for certain, don't tell me that it is right for this to have happened. No, it is not right, particularly when you are at the budget table, where you can shift and you can make preparations and you can change votes. That's where it is done. In Finance Committee, we held an argument there about it, and they didn't do anything about it. And you come 1 month after the budget, where they get their picture in the paper, as I said, they say anything, this government say anything, and they spin everything.
Absolutely.
Right? So I'm hoping that Mr. Yuan is speaking with some tongue in cheek. I still don't know what they're talking about Kool-Aid. You won't tell me that because you supported the UDP or PPM or whoever supported that means that what does this drinking this Kool-Aid mean? If some 2 or 3 big people in Georgetown getting together and they're fielding candidates, well, whose Kool-Aid you drinking? Whose Kool-Aid you drinking?
Is that a reference to Jim Jones and Jones style?
Whose Kool-Aid you drinking? If 3 lawyers or doctors or accountants get together
That's right.
and put a group together whom they're going to direct. Whose Kool-Aid are those people drinking?
Okay, one more caller.
Independence, my foot.
Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. Connor.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
Pretty good, thanks. Morning, Mr. Bush.
Good morning.
And morning, Mr. Anglin.
Good morning, ma'am.
What I wanted to say, I was listening off and on, and when I heard Mr. Borden came on, he said exact things. I want, my sentiments. But I'll be very brief. The only thing I'll have to say this morning is call elections in November, and I thank you.
Mom.
Well, the leader of government, the premier, has said that's not going to happen.
Well, I tell you what, the later caller has hit the nail on the head, because that's the feeling I get out there from the general public. People want elections. For people, the elections can't come soon enough because they do believe that the country is on the wrong path. But to get back to Mr. Moxham's point, and Mr. Bush put it quite eloquently, I hope he was being tongue-in-cheek, because the fact of the matter is, let's paint this picture clearly. If you are the minister responsible for any ministry, your job under the Constitution and as an elected representative of the people is to ensure that the needs of your ministry is fought for. Nobody's going to do that for you. If you go to the budget table and just throw your hands up and say, I only need 10 cents, you're probably going to get 8 cents. You need to go to the budget table. You need to understand your ministry. You need to listen to the professionals in the ministry, but you need to look and make a decision on what is the need. And so his point of people power, okay, I'll put a tick mark with an asterisk next to that. Yes, it's good that PTAs, senior administrators, as I understand it, made some heavy threats and went to people and said, look, if this is not corrected, we are going to cause a lot of issues for your government. And so now, miraculously, the monies are found. But the bottom line is, school starts in September. These people should have been being recruited from February.
Right.
Right? Because you need to recruit early to interview, make a decision. They then tell their current employers, because most of them have a current employer, that they're not going to be coming back to that particular school or learning institution come in September, and they're taking up a post in the Cayman Islands. This isn't something that happens overnight. This isn't something that you can just snap your fingers and 50 people are going to show up. The government, the minister responsible for education, and the government as a whole failed the children of this country, and they need to admit it. They shouldn't be out there bragging. They should have done this so quiet and got the people here and then had a little small reception and made it happen, because this wasn't something to brag about. You know, this is not something to brag about. This is bragging about failing our children and not doing what you're supposed to do in the very first instance. And let's play pretend. Let's pretend for a minute that the Minister of Education went forward and asked for these resources and were not given the resources. Well, let's look at the numbers. The numbers in the government is such that if she walks out of the government, Mr. McLaughlin does not have a government. She is the only independent, non-progressives member of the administration. She holds the administration together. Therefore, let's face it, she has the most power in that administration.
That's right.
She has the most power in that administration.
And this just take a pin there. This, because I'm going to deal with this sooner or later, this should give the country a message about independence. This should give them a message. They said that the last time, in C4C. Oh, we got to get independence. What happened? What happened? Is there any changes? Did McTaggart make any changes for Cayman?
He joined the Progressives.
Yeah, joined them. Tara made what changes? $6
None.
an hour? For what?
2 callers. We're going to try to accommodate them before the end of the show. First caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, O.C., and good morning to your guests in the studio there.
Morning.
Morning.
Sean, you might say.
Morning,
Been
Sean.
listening in, very, very interesting conversation. But, you know, what this country needs is a pro-Caymanian government elected whose agenda is to promote, empower, and unite the Cayman people. Yes, we're going to take care of everyone else, but our indigenous Caymanians like me, you all sitting in there, and many more listening this morning, we need the help, okay? And government, after government have been, you know, quite frankly, have been letting our people down over the years. And some have even become a part of the problem, a part of the reason why our people is suffering so much in their own country. And it is because of their own politicians, are, like I said, have been letting us down, not standing up for us as they should. And until that happens, we will all be kept to suffer and complain and fight amongst ourselves while others come in from everywhere in this world and benefit from what we should be benefiting from. This has been going on too long. Our people, and I hear this thing, you know, throwing up a lot about Caymanians. Yes, we don't know who a Cayman is now, but we certainly do know who those are that are indigenous Caymanians. And those are the people that should be benefiting from all of this building and gold that's happening here in Cayman. And we need a pro-Caymanian government, and I hope that you guys are elected. That is the stance that you guys would and view that you all would also take. All right? Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, caller. Let's go to our last caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
Good morning.
And good morning to Mr. Bush and Mr. Anglin.
Good morning.
Thank you. Two things, and I'll make this very quick. There was a question that arose earlier about the young man who was training and needing experience. I think too, because I think I sort of caught the tail end of that subject. Training to become a helicopter pilot. I will say, sir, that you know, I'm no genius about what is necessary, what is required to become a helicopter pilot or a pilot of any kind. But I will say this: if you're going to take any kind of flying machine in the air, you need to know what you're doing. And if there's certain numbers of hours that are required, I'm sure that the experts know the reason for that. So.
Yeah, and no one was disputing that.
Disputing
What
that.
we were talking about with that caller is giving that young man an opportunity, because he has the license already, giving him the opportunity to acquire the hours that are necessary for him to come back and take his rightful place in our society here in terms of a job.
And the other point, and the other point on that very quickly is this isn't a young man that we just found out about yesterday. This has been an issue that's been going on for years, and the government should have used its resources, its might, to ensure that they got him into a system so that he could have gotten his hours and he would be fully qualified by now.
Yeah.
Years later now, he has been marginalized, perhaps politically, and now we're bringing in a new one, and we're off bragging about that. That's the issue that we have with the whole situation.
That young man had a scholarship from the Nation Building Fund and went and did his training. And of course, his parents had to spend money, of course, put that child through school. He went off and did his training. And we have let's look at the situation. We have one helicopter that's government, one that is piloted by a foreign national. And you got a Caymanian that can train. They go and take out the seat, the second seat, so they can say there's not a seat in that helicopter. Caller, I don't know if you're still on there, but I can tell you something. Nobody on this radio show is saying that we can put people in positions that don't have training to deal with it. You wouldn't put somebody that's going to ride a bicycle to fly a kite, to fly a plane. No.
Say that, caller?
No.
What-
No, you
what I
wouldn't do
was
it. You
saying
wouldn't
is
do that.
I had not finished what I was going to say.
Okay, go right ahead, caller.
Okay. What I was going to say is this. We want to ensure that Caymanians get the preference. But I'm saying as a parent, as a onlooker, as a concerned citizen, I would not want to know that this would become a political issue when the top priority here would be safety. So it doesn't matter whether it's a Caymanian young man or young woman or a foreigner. If there are certain hours which are required, then those are required. And I wish the young man the best. I wish him success. I believe that he's smart enough to do the job. But I would like for us not to take these kinds of things to make them political when safety is of utmost importance. Now, I will finish what I'm going to say, and respectfully ask that you can respond to me because I wouldn't want to take up too much time. But I will say this: it is easy, particularly when it's coming up to an election time, to find fault with things that are done. Now, I heard just a bit ago about the money which has been provided, which has been necessary in the Department of Education, has now been required. And then Mr. Anglin, I think it was, who said, just suppose this has happened. Just suppose that had happened at this late hour into the year when the school is about to open. The thing about it is, a good government does not only do things right and do it on time, but if they find out that they have made a mistake, they are willing to, number one, admit that there's something which needs to be done, and number two, they're willing to get it done. If those monies have now been provided, I think we should say, good, very good that you got it done. Now, quite frankly, you would have to have blinders on, not to see, hear, and observe that this present government has made strides that have never been made in many years. The other strides forward. Just a moment. I'm almost finished, sir.
Time is almost up.
And I'm saying to you, if it were nothing else that they did except the way they managed their money, it would be enough. And the way in which they are trying to get things done. What I like about the government, don't think now they've reached what they ought or that they need to get done. I'm not here to say they're perfect, because I'm not.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't expect it of somebody else.
Okay, ask you to wrap up, please.
When it is said and done, there are going to be a lot of very good ticks on the sheet to say that this government has done things. They've done what they said they were going to do, and they've done them well.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
One of the things that we have to do is we have to stop sticking our heads in the sand. When we're talking about this helicopter situation, how many people recall the fiasco that we had when we were trying to get a pilot just to operate the spray plane, the MRCU spray plane?
Mm-hmm.
This is not an isolated incident.
No.
It is institutionalized, and until we recognize that, we will never, ever get anywhere near to solving the problems.
Absolutely. Mr. Connor, the point is, right, and I know the caller that called, and on a personal level, I like her very much. But she is a politician. She's not elected. She hasn't been elected for quite some time. She is a politician, and she's an expert politician, because what an expert politician does is call you, tell you you're being political and what you're saying is being political, but then be political themselves and give the government kudos. So I wholly disagree with the caller for one simple reason. If you are a good government or a good minister, you would have known the needs of your ministry. What could that minister know now that she didn't know when the budget was being passed?
Correct.
What could she know now that she didn't know? She knew of these needs.
Particularly when the members of the House sit down at a time you're examining the budget and you can shift around money and do what you need to do, and you don't take what members are saying.
That's right.
So what's the difference?
And so the other point that I was going to make is...
Well, I think people understand where Daphne is coming from. Right?
The other point I was going to make is, even if...
won't get paid for coming on the radio.
Even if the minister was refused by her government, I don't buy that, because she has the most power in the cabinet because of holding the government together. But then she had a second opportunity, if that was the case. Because in Finance Committee, when she was point blank asked this question, she could have told the truth then and made the committee put the political pressure on the government in public and then get the money that she needed. The reality is, when you go into a ministry, you have to be a humble servant of the people and want the best for our people and the children of this country. If you think you know it all, if you think that arrogance and ego is going to be the order of the day, that gets you nowhere. It gets you into the bind that you're in now. And so what Cayman needs is honest politicians who are going to be for Cayman, but they are going to be workers. They're going to be humbled servant leaders, not the other way around, believing you're a leader of everything and you listen to no one. And so ultimately, the government has gotten caught with their pants down in the worst of ways, in my opinion. And now they've come to the table and come to the public and bragged about it. But the other point that was made by Johan that is very, very important. Everybody knows quite clearly. You just need to look at the results of the elections, and you just need to look at the crowds that follow on campaign time. I heard him make the point on big business and driving agenda. I'm well aware. I know Mr. Moxham well knows that our party has never been a party that's won favor with big business in this country. We're a grassroots organization, and that's where the majority of our support has always come from. So when he made those points, I can only presume that he's talking about the present administration and that is contributing to their failure to deliver to the good to the people of the Cayman Islands. But ultimately, I want to remind us about something else, Mr. Connor.
Okay, you're going to use this as your wrap up as well?
Yeah. Okay, let's do that. Yeah. When it comes to Caymanians, there ought to be no such thing as jobs for Caymanians or businesses for Caymanians. Why do I say that? Every job is assumed that it can be filled by a Caymanian. If you can't find a Caymanian by going through the processes, then you apply for a work permit to bring someone from the outside in to fill that post. Now, when it comes to businesses, other than the LCCL, every business must be 60-40. 60% Cayman participation, 40%, up to 40% of non-Caymanian. We also brought a motion where we would talk, where we floated the idea that we've reached a point in Cayman's development that certain industries and businesses ought to now be 100%. Let's use a simple example. Why should we have North Zone operators, for example, as good a job as we've done building that and catering and servicing that market? Why should we have anything other than 100% Caymanian participation in that industry, for example? We have reached a stage where we can move our people forward, move the country forward by having some of those points being brought forward and being brought to fruition. We need to do a better job with business licensing, and we do need, as Mr. Bush said, the next administration is going to have to look at that law, because right now it's become so bureaucratic that it's killing small businesses just trying to comply with the new trade and business licensing law. But then on the flip side, we're seeing too many instances where LCCLs are being granted, especially for development type projects, and not having the Caymanian participation and bringing Caymanians to the table to ensure that developers understand you need to use an established Cayman business in order to develop the project.
Okay, Mr. Bush, final comments?
OC, I think Ralston has said both points that we want to make on the show today. And I would only want to close by saying, in regards to Daphne's call, I don't expect no better from Daphne. What Daphne will never say is that anything that we done was any good. And now, especially since the government put $1,000 a month in the budget for her from last month or whatever time it was, last year budget, and then this year again. So I don't expect any better than from her than what she has said. Regardless of how money is spent, we spent money on our people. That's what we done in trying to help our people. That's what governments need to do. In regards, what she would now pointed out is that they had $79 million in surplus after I found $80 million in deficit in 2009. And we turned that around and had $79 to $80 million by December or by March, whatever time it was in 2013. And that we had passed the bill to get the balance. And so, yeah, she can talk about the government got it there and what's the word you use? Using how they spend their money. Yeah. If they're paying her $1,000 a month, then that's a good thing, I guess.
Gentlemen?
As I said, right, the next administration have to invest more in our families and our children. We must ensure that growth opportunities are embraced so that we can provide the very best for our families. And when we make the money, we don't do what they have just done with the scholarship. Yes, I'm glad. But it's, I give things and nobody ever knows that I do it. However, I'm not going to be happy that we sat there arguing with them. They didn't see the need to do it at that time. And now we're going to wait months into the administration, getting towards the end, going up to an election that they're going to get 50 people more.
Okay.
If there's anybody playing politics that know it, it's you and them.
Got to close off now, gentlemen. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to add a plug very quickly as well, very important one. Len Standahan. Yes. Please join. Swank is asking you to join them, the Swanky Kitchen Band and friends, for a fun-filled happy hour as we raise funds for our very own Stano Ebanks as he travels abroad for medical attention, for medical treatment. So it's going to be happy hour 5 until, well, we can call it happy hours.
Hours.
5 until 8 p.m. This Friday, today, the 26th of August, Elizabethan Square.
We want people, we want to encourage. That was one thing we were going to close off with, that advertisement. I just got the reminder on my cell that we want to encourage people to come out this evening to support that. I think Sam Rosenham is doing an excellent job in trying to help Stan.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I just want to say to our listeners, there's one listener who sent me something about local companies control license, and it seems as if it's an advertisement for a real estate company, and haven't forgotten you, just didn't have enough time. But next week we will certainly raise that issue. If not on Monday, then certainly on Wednesday. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We want to thank our guests. We want to thank our sponsors. For the Record was brought to you by Caribbean Alliance Insurance Company Limited. Tomorrow secured. Call them at 949-9744 or visit them at Alista Towers, Seaboard Marine, with 35 shipping routes, including from Houston, New York, Miami, and Jamaica. Visit seaboardmarine.com for shipping schedules and more. Seaboard Marine, shipping shore to shore. Fidelity Bank, for all your banking and pension needs, call or visit a Fidelity branch today. I also want to remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters keepers. We are our brothers and our sisters keepers. There is always someone out there who's less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to a worthy charity, because we always want to consider those who need, not necessarily those who want. I want to encourage you to continue to support your radio station, Radio Cayman. Join Sterling, Dwayne Ebanks at 12 noon for a talk. Today, on Monday, we expect to have the Honorable Alden McLaughlin, Premier of the Cayman Islands, on For the Record as well. I say to you, have a great day, have a great weekend, stay safe, and we ask the good Lord to continue to bless these 3 beautiful Cayman Islands.
Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record.